$13,960 in a week. We could pretty much just call it $14,000, which comes out to a grand total of almost $60,000 throughout the month if you were to take that average. Now, how did this happen? What goes into doing something like this? And in this video, I'm actually going to explain why this is really nothing special and what you actually need to do this. A lot of people think, okay, $60,000, that's $720,000 a year. You're talking about inventory, you're talking about all this. But when it comes to online marketing and you're reaching a pool of so many people, it really doesn't take a lot to bring in about $1 million in sales. And that's a little bit of a misconception. Now, that doesn't mean it's instant, it's easy. Yes, this is a store we built for a client pretty quickly. I mean, this is something that, they had done about 20,000 the prior month, and this month, now they're on track for about 55 to 70. So we'll see kind of where it goes and depend on what happens throughout the rest of the month. But it's been going extremely well. So that's the cool thing with the online angle and the online approach with paid marketing. Things can take off very quick, So first of all, testing comes first. And I want to break this down because on the Ecom Season channel here on YouTube, as well as on the Instagram, we get this question a lot, okay? People asking how to scale, but they don't have a baseline of sales. And that's a little bit concerning, which means we get questions from people, how do I scale? I want to get to 50,000 a week. I want to get to 100,000 a month, whatever the number is. How do I scale? I'm like, okay. What's going on right now? Run me through where your ads are at. How much are you spending? What's your order fulfillment process look like? Kind of try to dig in. And they do like 3 sales a week. They don't really have that winning product. And so I always try to revert their attention off of scaling and back onto testing and identifying that first product. Some might have a very, very small baseline of sales, but you're not ready to scale. Scaling is going to require a little bit of an infrastructure. This is one of the arguably the most instantly valuable things inside of our advertising agency, just based on client feedback, is a lot of people come to us doing even $1,000 a day, $2,000 a day, but they don't have a system to scale. They can barely support that because they're doing everything themselves. They don't have fast shipping. They don't even have a personal connection or a personal phone number to their supplier. They don't have a real payment processor. They're stuck using Shopify payments, Stripe, PayPal, like literally nightmare aggregators. And there's no actual technical advertising skill to scale with. So those couple of things are one of the most instantaneous, and what's usually cool when you dial that in. Let's say you're making $1,000 a day in sales, and you move to the proper processor, or to there's not just one proper, but you move to a real processor, a real proper merchant, and you start dialing it in with a real supplier. Not only are you getting faster shipping, you're going to save money on sourcing. You'll probably start making an extra $2-3 a month right then and there. You're also going to start saving probably an extra $1,000-$2,000 a month just in processing fees. So that right there, $5,000. I mean, it's just like very instant to really reduce the cost without even having to scale. You already scaled your profit without having to touch your ads. So building that system and touching the back end is important, but a lot of people think they want to scale, and they're like, obviously scaling's good, but there's a time and place for everything. And if you're just not there yet, and you don't even have a product that you found that's working, obviously you still have to identify that, build data, and get something going and have a consistent baseline of sales before you can scale. Once you have a winner and cash flow, okay, positive net cash flow, now you can start some scaling steps, which would include amazing custom content. Okay, we spend anywhere from about, on the low end, $2,000 up to about $15,000 a month on custom content. The reason for this is because it is a slight fraction of the net profit that the business generates. And reinvesting back into content is going to help you extend the lifetime of the audiences that you're running, whether they're lookalikes, retargeting, cold interest targeting, whatever it is. That really doesn't matter. But then you're going to want to go, once you have all these new creatives and all this cool stuff, you're going to want to aggressively test new audiences. So this is what this looks like. When you're first testing a product, you're trying to be very selective with the audience you're running. I would assume, I would hope, right? You're trying to say, hey, these are going to be the best 5 interests. These are the most closely relating 8 interests. I'm going to test them. And when they start working, very often people get to that point where they can start running with some audiences built off their pixel. There's not a lot of people who test new audiences in terms of interest targeting, but that's one format of scaling. So I want you to then go ahead and move to the secondary interests, the things that might not be as closely related, the things that might have a much larger audience. The reason it will work now is you have a ton of data behind it. Your ads are already going to have a ton of engagement, which is social proof, so you can probably perform the same as your previous more niche focused ads in a larger pool of people, which is great because that allows you to scale further. So aggressive audience testing. Let me give you an example. I'll write this out. When I was doing about $500 a day with one store, that looked like probably 5 interests and had just started like 2 types of LLAs, okay? You're doing like $500 a day in sales. When I decided we wanted to officially start dumping money into this, the store had gotten up to maybe $800 to $1,000 a day. I launched probably, 70 different audiences with probably $10,000 a day worth of new ad spend, mixing in probably 5 new creatives out of like 10 that we had gotten. So that's obviously a slightly more aggressive route. But what I mean there is, people might say, how do you grab 70 audiences? Every single format of LLA. All your LLA percentages US, all your LLA percentages top 4, all of them top 5, whatever specific country groups you want to do. Worldwide, mixing those certain types of interests by themselves, stacked interests, interest groups, current interest groups, individual versus stacked, putting those in ad sets versus CBOs, different formats of CBOs. You can get up to hundreds. You can literally get up to thousands. There was a day I launched like 3,000 new ad sets. And some of those were inside of CBOs and stuff, but like very, very aggressive. That's usually not the path you're going to want to take. 2 reasons. Number 1, it's going to mess with Facebook. Facebook's not going to like that usually, especially anymore. Number 2, it's going to be very cash flow intense. You don't want to go from spending $300 a day doing $1,000 a day in sales to trying to spend $10,000 a day. Not only to bring up the point of the ad account spending limit issue, but the fact that it probably won't have all positive results. If you're not that confident in your product, or it's not just as dialed in yet, you don't know for certain you're going to make money and the money really matters, like let's say you don't have a ton of it sitting, well, then you just don't want to be that aggressive. You find that middle balance, the happy medium. But that's what I mean by aggressive audience testing. You can tailor this to kind of whatever you need. And then number 3, trying new budget strategies. This could be different budget ad sets, different budget CBOs, just different strategies from wherever you're learning. Basically, almost every single course is different. So courses, you might be able to get some ideas off YouTube videos, anybody you're paying for coaching, anything like that. I always like to try new things. We're always constantly buying training programs from even people who operate outside of the e-commerce space, but still inside of like advertising, Google ads, Facebook ads. As an agency, we buy that, and we kind of go through some of the, meaning we, upper level management goes through some of those programs, figures out which ones are good, and we'll pass those to our media buyers. Just because if they can pick up 1 or 2 extra little things, just like one little budget thing, it can make such a difference. And I've noticed that in my career throughout the last 5 years. Anytime I buy a program, it's always like one little golden nugget. I remember one time it was email marketing. I never really paid much attention to emails, and boom, now you have an extra $5-10 grand a month profit coming in through emails, and you're engaging with your customers, which helps build the brand. So was that like $700 course at the time that talked about email marketing for 90 minutes worth it? Absolutely. So it's just like keeping that in mind. And again, that goes back to the cash flow. You got to have the right information when you're starting. Otherwise, you're not going to get to the cash flow. But it's an important point. So trying new budget strategies, any new ideas that you see, you'll have the budget for it. And that'll ultimately result in more things that work. So yeah, it might sound a little bit weird, but doing $14,000 in a week really doesn't take anything special. Okay, you can do it if you have a halfway decent ad. You don't even need custom content for it, really. I mean, it can be pretty basic stuff as long as you have really good advertising skills. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Now, combine all these factors and you nail everything really well. Trust me, you'll get a lot further than $14,000 a week. You'll be at, $14,000 a month, then $14,000 a week, then $14,000 a day, then $30,000 a day, then $50,000, then $100,000. It can scale pretty quickly. Okay, and so that's just what it comes down to. Now, I want to end this video off by answering a few questions. We can get into a bunch of questions here. These 2 bottom ones we're going to be answering in full on the Ecom Season Instagram page, so make sure to follow over there if you're not already. By the way, be sure to reference some of the resources linked in the description, both as our advertising agency. We also have an email where if you want to apply for one-on-one coaching with myself, we're starting to open up a few more spots, usually 2 to 3 of those every single month. So if you have any interest in getting help scaling, that's probably not the best route for someone just starting out. But if you have a bigger budget and it's something that you really want to do, if you already have something working and you really want help scaling, that's a great route for it as well. So reach out to that email. Top question here. Hello, Aiden. Can we use the same business info to verify 2 business managers inside of their Facebook ad account? I mean, because one of my business managers got disabled and now I need to verify another one. No. I would definitely separate the entity. You can grab LLCs pretty easily, especially if something got disabled. That's just like saying this entire profile got disabled. So now I'm using my friend's Facebook account. Should I link the same credit card that already had gotten disabled on the other one? No, because they're going to know instantly. It's going to be a fraction of a second. That piece of information is going to beam to 3 different satellites back to Facebook, and Zuckerberg himself is going to shut your ass down. That's kind of how it works. So yeah, this next one. What would explain random drops in conversion rates on their store? One day the store is doing 4.5%, the next day it's doing 1.7%. Anyway, to alleviate that fluctuation. Okay, I never see this happen when a store is operating at scale. If you're in like that testing phase and the store's kind of swinging from 200 a day, sometimes it's 420, sometimes it's like 360, it's like a little bit, bouncing all over 50%. That's a little more normal. It's just building data. You just need to scale to minimize that risk. Now, if you're profitable at a 1.7, that's fine. A 1.7 is fine, but that is a big fluctuation range. I mean, almost 5% down to 1.7. That's huge. So conversion rate, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I only have a 2. Well, some of the most profitable stuff that we work on, both as an agency and myself as an individual, is a lower percentage. But that's because we scale out with lower quality traffic. That's just is what it is. It's not discrimination, whatever, just lower quality traffic. When you're running more general worldwide traffic, it has a lot more lower quality people inside of that. So your conversion rate will drop. Doesn't mean you're unprofitable. But the way to alleviate simple things like that is, number one, taking note of your audiences. You can trim it down if you want. Focus on just more like the 5 or 10 highest quality countries in terms of standard online traffic. You could work on your store, mostly your product page, optimize that a little bit, dial it in. I'm sure there's some things you could do there. And possibly the price of your product or your service, whatever you're advertising. That could be one thing. Some people might be bouncing, but the fact that you have a 4.5 on one day shows that people are definitely interested, and a 1.7 is still good too, but it's just kind of a short list of things to mess with and do them one at a time to see how that actually affects your conversion rate. So third one here, cost per purchase is going up. What's the best way to lower cost per purchase? Again, we talked about this over on the e-com season page. I broke down this question in depth, but it's a great question. If your cost per purchase is going up, it usually means you're not doing some of these things. You're not testing new audiences. Your audiences can and will die out, especially if they're small. 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million people. That can die out pretty quickly when you've spent 30 grand, So it's pretty easy to have that die. And then content creation. You're obviously going to want to be making a lot of new custom content that will not only extend the lifetime of the audiences and how long they're going to work for, but at the same time, that's going to help keep that cost per purchase low because people are seeing new things. Same thing with retargeting. So yeah, that's kind of it. If you have any other questions, ask them in the comment section down below. We'll do some more videos. I'll start answering a couple of questions at the end of each one. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you got any value from it, make sure to drop a like. Again, any questions at all. It doesn't just have to be e-commerce related. It could be generalized advertising, Shopify stores, whatever. Whatever your question is, feel free to leave it in the comment section. Be sure to reference those links in the description, advertising agency, our e-commerce program, the Facebook ad program, as well as the new email there for one-on-one coaching if you want to apply for that. All right. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.